watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. President Michel Aoun says the state's authority has eroded due to the extension of parliament as well as the lingering corruption in the country. In Mosul, Iraqi forces pile pressure on ISIS, moving closer to the cutting off of extremists' escape route to Syria. U.S. President Barack Obama pays a farewell visit to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, sees by many as the new standard bearer of liberal democracy since the election of Donald Trump. We begin today with President Michel Aoun, who said that the state's authority has eroded due to the extension of parliament as well as lingering corruption. The state is in a constant state of deficiency as governance has become outside the framework of competency and ethics, Aoun said from Kirke. Parliamentary elections were originally supposed to take place in 2013. However, Parliament renewed its term twice in 2013 and 2014, citing security concerns. Aoun's remarks drew a swift response by Speaker Nabih Berri, who accused parties that were blocking the election of a president since May 2014 of having immense repercussions on state institutions, including the parliament. Aoun's visit to Mayor Naib Shara Rai is considered a protocol visit for any president after his election. Rai did express his full support to Aoun, describing him as a symbol of national unity, whose election unified Lebanese factions that had long been divided. He called for the endorsement of a new electoral law that represents all Lebanese groups and factions. Russian airstrikes have killed at least 30 extremists in rebel-held Idlib province in northwestern Syria. The strikes, which began on Tuesday, were part of a major operation against extremists in Idlib and Homs, which saw the first missions carried out by Russian warplanes taking off from the Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier that arrived to Syria last week. Idlib province is mostly controlled by a powerful rebel alliance known as the Army of Conquest, which groups Islamist factions with extremists of Fatah al-Sham, formerly al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate. Russia has been carrying out airstrikes on Syria since September 2015 to support the regime of ally Bashar al-Assad and insists it is only hitting terrorist targets. Iraqi forces are piling pressure on ISIS around Mosul, moving closer to cutting off the extremists' escape route west to Syria and thrusting deeper into the east of the city. Pro-government paramilitaries advancing on the town of Tal Afar, which commands the city's west approaches, entered its airport, while troops moving up from the south had the Mosul airport in their sights. Wounded civilians continue to stream out of the east of Mosul as government forces are battling ISIS fighters on the streets. Medics zipped a white body bag around one of the dead, according to relatives. Lying on his side on a cot, one Syrian refugee said frantically asked passing medics about his infant son, who was being treated nearby for wounds in his eyes. Coming up next, we discuss the government that is being formed by Donald Trump. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. U.S. President Barack Obama pays farewell to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, seen by some as the new standard bearer of liberal democracy since the election of Donald Trump. On the last leg of his final European tour as president, Obama will try to ease fears about the future of the transatlantic partnership and thank Merkel for her friendship during his 2 terms. In a joint article to coincide with his arrival in Germany, Obama and Merkel appealed for ongoing cooperation on the basis of shared principles to fight climate change, ensure collective defense without NATO, and promote free trade. As Western leaders brace for potentially radical changes within the Trump moving into the Oval Office in January, Obama is wrapping up a visit to Athens, warning that globalization required a course correction to keep voters from drifting to extremes. This comes as he assured allies of the U.S. commitment to NATO, promising to support a smooth handover.
In recent years, we've made historic investments in NATO, increased America's presence in Europe, and today's NATO, the world's greatest alliance, is as strong and as ready as it's ever been. And I am confident that just as America's commitment to the transatlantic alliance has endured for 7 decades, whether it's been under a Democratic or Republican administration, that commitment will continue. including our pledge and our treaty obligation to defend every ally. These show that we're stronger than terrorists and fundamentalists and absolutists who can't tolerate difference, can't tolerate ideas that vary from their own, who try to change people's way of life or shrink from our values. Democracy is stronger than organizations like ISIL that so often can facilitate economic growth. We compete hard in campaigns in America and here in Greece. But after the election, democracy depends on a peaceful transition of power, especially when you don't get the results you want. We have very different points of view, but American democracy is bigger than any one person. And that's why we have a tradition of the outgoing president welcoming the new one in, as I did last week. And why in the coming weeks my administration will do everything we can to support the smoothest transition possible, because that's how democracy has to work. Here in Europe, even with today's challenges, I believe that by virtue of the progress it has delivered over the decades, the stability it has provided, the security it's reinforced, that European integration and the European Union remains one of the great political and economic achievements of human history. And today is strong and prosperous and democratic. But I think all institutions in Europe have to ask themselves, how can we make sure that people within individual countries feel as if their voices are still being heard?
Defeated Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton called for a renewed fight for a more inclusive United States despite disappointment over an election loss that laid bare national divisions. In her first public remarks since conceding to Republican Donald Trump last week, Clinton said that many Americans were asking whether his victory meant the United States was still the country they thought it was. Although Fund founder Marian Wright Edelman called the nonprofit advocacy group event a love-in for Hillary Clinton, the former First Lady said it had not been easy for her to attend. Clinton won the popular vote but lost a crucial electoral college tally to Trump, the New York real estate magnate who has taken a hard line on immigration and opposed accepting Syrian refugees. Anti-gay slurs and a swastika spray painted on the side of an Indiana church, threatening social media messages targeting black students and school children, taunting Hispanic students that they say should be deported. These are some of the more than 400 incidents of hate crimes and race-related incidents that have occurred since Republican Donald Trump won the U.S. presidential election last week. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which monitors hate groups, began tracking reports of hate crimes made to the center in the news and on social media, and said it has seen a dramatic increase in the sort of incidents over the past week. According to some civil rights leaders, Trump's divisive campaign rhetoric has emboldened some of his supporters to spread racist messages. Trump has been criticized for failing to address those behind the incidents, pointing out that Trump has taken to Twitter to attack the media and others he views as critics multiple times a day, but has not addressed hate-related incidents. During an event in North Carolina in August, Trump suggested that gun rights activists could stop his Democratic rival Clinton from nominating liberal justices to the Supreme Court. President-elect Donald Trump again met with the Federalist Society, a conservative law group, as he decides who to nominate to the U.S. Supreme Court. Speaking with journalists outside of Trump Tower, Trump's campaign manager and strategist Kellyanne Conway said Trump met with Leonard Leo, the executive vice president of the Federalist Society, to discuss the 21 people Trump listed as potential replacements for the late Justice courtperson Antonin Scalia.
He just had a fabulous meeting with the president of the Federalist Society, Leonard Leo, where they discussed Mr. Trump's list of 21 Supreme Court nominees that he had put out during the campaign. I think an issue that was very important to many voters. If you look at the media exit polls, about 1/5 of voters said the Supreme Court was important to their decision, and 60% of them voted for him. So during the election, candidate Donald Trump put forth in a public fashion his list of 21 possible Supreme Court nominees, and he said that he would choose from that list. And he made very clear that everyone on that list had a couple things in common. First, they're qualified to serve in the United States Supreme Court, and secondly, they are in the mold of the late great Justice Antonin Scalia. So that is still the case, and he's very engaged. I think for all the talk about filling out his senior staff and appointing a cabinet, he also is very focused on the Supreme Court vacancy.
Puerto Rican superstar Ricky Martin has a lot to celebrate. The Grammy-winning artist announced a concert residency in Las Vegas and revealed he had proposed to his partner of 1 year, Syrian-born artist Juan Yusuf. But with Donald Trump's victory in the U.S. presidential election, many lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender advocates fear a backlash against their community, as do other minorities after months of hard rhetoric on the campaign trail. Martin, who has spoken out against Trump ahead of the election, said he would use his celebrity to be really loud if he ever felt his rights were being infringed upon.
Yes. And you know what? There are two eternities that can break me down. That is yesterday and tomorrow. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future of this country. I can only just hope for the best and see what happens. If things go sour, in the sense that I, as a member of the LGBT community or a member of the Latino community in this country, if I feel threatened, I am going to be really loud. But something tells me that that's not going to be necessary. I don't know if it's just that I'm hopeful and really optimistic about my life in general and my family's well-being, that I really hope that everything is stable. So first of all, to be part of a group of artists that have given everything on stage here in Vegas, for me, is really beautiful. You know, we're talking about Barbara Streisand, Celine Dion, Britney, Jennifer Lopez, Frank Sinatra. You know, it's just to be part of that group. It feels amazing. And right now we just started the creative process. I'm going to be working with Jamie King, which is an amazing producer who I've worked with in the past. And when we get together, it's dangerous because of the amount of ideas that we get. All I want in this stage is for, number one, for every song to be a completely different experience for the crowd. Right now we're deciding on the repertoire, what songs we're gonna perform, Spanish, English, how bilingual is this going to be.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. President Michel Aoun says the state's authority has eroded due to the extension of parliament as well as lingering corruption in the country. Iraqi forces piled pressure on ISIS around Mosul, moving closer to cutting off the extremists' escape to Syria. And President Barack Obama pays a farewell visit to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, seen by many as the new standard bearer of liberal democracy. Stay with us. Philippine Clermont is next with the French news. I'm Yumna Naufal signing off. Take care.